Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux here with the Daily Racing Form. We're going to take a look at a stakes race this Sunday at Santa Anita Park. It's their 7th race. It's the California Flag Handicap at 6.5 furlongs on the downhill. It's actually going to kick off a pick 5 sequence. And we'll look at this field top to bottom. 7 runners have been entered. We'll see Brickyard Ride getting back onto the turf. We've seen him on the turf just once in 2023. We'll also see horses such as Kings River Knight. Was a winner last time out in the E.B. Johnston. Prior to that, had a really nice second place finish. And then some others in here that are intriguing. Little Nos from post 6 and the 5, None Above the Law out of the Peter Miller barn. Going to get a key equipment change. Going to race with blinkers again. And we didn't see him with his blinkers in those last 2 starts, but on the cutback, they have decided to add them back on. And just looking at the time form, pace projections here, not shocking at all to see Brickyard Ride probably leave from the gate from post position 1. He's just speed through and through. We've seen that throughout his career. There is no rating him, so he should be pretty much loose on the lead here. But the 2 Billy's Bet could maybe be involved, has been quite close to it, especially in those 2 turf sprints at Del Mar in 2023. And then maybe looking at the other, Kings River Knight, another one that likes to be close to it. I just don't think anyone is simply as quick as Brickyard Ride, and they don't get the benefit of the inside draw. And speaking of Brickyard Ride, we'll take a look at his most recent turf effort. Now we have to go back to that race on March 5th at Santa Anita. He's the number 1 here. You're going to see him on the inside. And he was leading early, but the fractions on the downhill got to him in the end. He set fractions of 21 and 2 and 43 almost flat to that opening half mile. And those are just very explosive fractions that he had nothing left really in the stretch. But he does hang on for 3rd in this grade 3 event. And since then, he found the winner's circle in his following outing. He was 3rd in both the Thor's Echo and even the San Diego Handicap this year. Now, last time out in the Pat O'Brien, it just didn't pan out for him. But I think getting him back on the turf course should not be an issue. He has a good turf record at Santa Anita. And based on what we saw last time on the turf, and the fact that he could be loose here, he's obviously a major player. Now, the 2 Billy's Bet, as we saw in the time form pace projections, could be close to it early on. Has been quite close in those 2 efforts in 2023, and he had a big gap. We didn't see him for over a year, but in his 2 tries this year, he's finished 4th in both of them. I think at this level, he's certainly going to need to show more, as he just hasn't been able to show any sort of late turn of foot going 5-ace, and now he's going to have to stretch out to 6.5 and tackle the downhill. I think it's a lot for him to deal with, but he comes into this race off a career best Beyer of a 79. The three, Irish Heatwave is where we'll go next. This is a horse who hasn't shown much in those last 2, but obviously last time out, race was carded for the turf, moved to the main track. I think you can draw a line right through that race. And if you're focusing in on efforts, say 3 and 5 starts back ago, he's had some nice turf runs, but the 1-3 back where he was 4th, it was going a mile. The last time he went 6.5, it wasn't on the downhill, but he was able to get the job done, and he had some decent fractions early on to close into and got up by a neck. So it'll be interesting to see him, though, in this event in terms of the configuration on the downhill, and he'll need some pace to run at. We know that the pace should be hot. The 4, Kings River Knight, this one out of the John Sadler barn. We'll take a look at his most recent turf effort, which is at Del Mar on August 5th in the California Dreamin'. Ends up getting the lead just for a little bit here in the stretch, but is going to get passed by Carmelita's Man. And I thought this race was a pretty wide open event, and he looks to be going pretty strong here, but ends up getting edged out in the end by 3/4 of a length. I thought it was a great effort. And then to see him get back on the dirt last time out, he was able to win. He just set off the pace early on at Los Alamitos Racecourse in the E.B. Johnston, and then kicked on clear by 2 lengths. And he's been a horse that we've seen him in that most recent race at Del Mar. It was a mile and a 16th, but go down the page, go to that downhill effort back on March 19th, and the Sensational Star just got nosed out and finished 2nd behind the Chosen Braun, who came back to win next time out. It's just been such a fun horse to watch in California. Got a 91 Beyer in that effort. I mean, I think Kings River Knight has the ability to go 6.5, can go longer, can stretch out to a mile and a 16th, and doesn't matter the surface. I really think this is a really nice runner who's 6 for 12 in his career, and he's done very little wrong. And I like that he comes in here with the strong work. Hernandez stays aboard him here and has been aboard him in 3 of his last 4 starts, and those have been his winning starts. The 5, None Above the Law. This is one that's going to get blinkers on after not wearing blinkers in those last 2. And I think a big reason might have been they were route races, a mile and a 16th on the turf, 2 back. And more recently, they tried a mile and 3/8, and he just never really got running. I don't think it was sort of the distance for him. They tried something new, though, and I give them credit for that. I think he is intriguing, cutting back to 6.5. The last time he tried 6.5 was just about a year ago, and it was in this race, and he was actually the runner-up. He finished 2nd, beaten by a length and a quarter. Same name comes up again. The Chosen Brown won that race as well as his next outing. And he has a similar story to many in here. They're going to cut back. They're going to get back on the turf in hopes of stepping up and in hopes of being competitive against this bunch. Now, the one thing I don't like about him, though, he is 0 for 4 on the turf course at Santa Anita. Who's outside the number 6, Lil Nas. We'll take a look at his replay from his most recent win, and you can't miss him. He's the gray, but you also can't miss him. He's on the front here, and he's going to stay in front throughout. Frankie Dettori was aboard. This was a while back, though. This was on January 8th. This is the last time we've seen this John Sadler trainee, but he looked pretty good in here. He kept to task throughout, and the fractions weren't hot. He set comfortable fractions to his liking, but I thought it was nice to see him stretch out because prior to that, he tried 6.5 and didn't have a ton of success. But look at the fractions in that downhill race. That is sometimes the thing with the downhill. The fractions are very quick, and he was chasing in that race and ended up tiring to finish 6th, beaten by nearly 3 right lengths. He does have some decent sprint races under his belt, but we haven't seen him in some time. And I just wonder, off the long layoff, is this maybe a race to get him into shape and to point towards maybe not this race, but the next race? I'm wondering if that might be the case with Little Nas. And then we'll round it up with the 7 in here on the outside, who also participated in that E.B. Johnston that we talked about at Los Alamitos race course. He finished 4th. Prior to that, a dull effort at Del Mar, but I'm keen in on those races 3 and 4 starts back where he's left himself a lot of work to do in those final stages, in those 6.5 furlong events, but he's made up ground. He finished 3rd in both of them. And I think the downhill race suited him a little bit more. That was the race 3 back. I thought he raced very well, got some quick fractions to run at, and he only missed by 2.5 lengths. He got an 84 Beyer speed figure for that effort. And I think if the pace is hot, which we figure it should be, not because Brickyard Ride will necessarily get pressed, but he's just that quick, maybe this horse will be closing in the end. But that's the field here for the California Flag this year's edition. And to me, 2 horses stand out. It's Brickyard Ride, and it's the 4 Kings River Knight. And I'm just going to go with the 4 in here, Kings River Knight, as my top pick. Has had such a great season the last 2 years. Just a really nice resume for this 5-year-old son of acclamation. I loved the effort, even in defeat 2 starts back. I'm really excited to see him cut back to 6.5 and get back onto the downhill, because when we saw him back on March 19th on the downhill, I thought it was a very, very strong performance. I'm going to use him on top. The 1 Brickyard Ride, he's tremendous as well, a 13-time winner in the career, and obviously has that natural gate speed, draws the inside, and is going to cut back in distance off those last several efforts. But the downhill, we saw the most recent effort on the downhill. I thought it was good. He faced very nice horses. I do think he's a major player in here as well. And then from there, I used the 5 and the 7 underneath. But I think the main 2 are Brickyard Ride and Kings River Knight. And I ultimately went with the latter of the 2 for this race. Good luck.